Hello and welcome to our program, New Year, New Organized Spaces. Janet Hardy joins us as the owner of the professional organizing business Containing Spaces. She joins us this evening to offer her expertise in basic home organization, common problems people face, and how having organization in your environment can help to give you mental clarity. I'm now going to turn the program over to Janet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. I appreciate it. Good evening, and thank you everyone for joining in tonight. Also, thank you to the Bartlesville Public Library. This is my whole beginning my 5th month of business, so I appreciate the vote of confidence and the desire to have this conversation tonight. I am going to start out just a little bit of about me, and then I'm going to get into my business and obviously the meat of what you're tuning in to listen to tonight, which is how to get better organized. But like she said, my name is Janet Hardy, and I'm the owner and professional organizer for Containing Spaces. I grew up just a couple hours down the road in a tiny town called Knoll, Missouri, if anyone is familiar. Then made my way to Fayetteville to the University of Arkansas, where I met my husband, Jason. We graduated from there in 2008. Very quickly got married and then moved to Bartlesville. So we have now been here in town for about 12 and a half years, which sometimes that still boggles my mind that we've been here that long. But obviously we've fallen in love with this town, what it has to offer, and we've chosen to start and raise our family here. So we have 2 toddlers. Jet Dayton is 4 years old. He is our rambunctious, full of life, big personality. And Jax Devin is 2 years old, and he is following right behind in his little brother's footsteps. So we are very busy in our house. I also work full-time at Phillips 66. So I work in IT communications. Backing up to college, actually I have a journalism degree, which I was just talking to these ladies about. So I feel at home up here in front of the camera. I have a journalism degree. I work in communications and IT, and then I also have this organizing business on the side. So kind of a wide, varying career path, but everything has lent itself one to the other. So kind of bouncing back to my early life and how all this organization started, I've just kind of always been an organized person. I kind of tend to, I think it is something that you can learn, but innately you either have it or you don't, kind of a thing. And to some extent it comes very naturally to me, which I'm very thankful for. I was always the kid who made my bed every day. Everything in my room had a home. In high school, I remember I waited tables starting at age of 15 at just a local pizza joint. And so I'd get a lot of tip money, all cash at the end of the night. And even I would come home and I remember I had a watch box is all it was, and my money fit perfectly in there. So all of these little pieces of organization have always just been in my life. I always had the tidy dorm room when I went to college, and those spaces are so small, and so many parents and students tend to just pack and pack and pack those rooms with places, and so you could always very clearly see which side of the dorm room was mine. Mine was the neat and tidy one where everything had a home and a place. My roommate on the other side, she had a little bit different lifestyle, but you could always tell what was mine. And then later, as we moved to Bartlesville and we moved into our first home and then to our second home, that organization passion and interest has kind of just always followed me. And that brings me to Containing Spaces and how did this happen? And really, this has been a dream for mine for a few years now. And bringing professional organizing to Northeast Oklahoma. Like I said, it started a couple years ago, and then earlier this year, I knew organizing was something I was passionate about. Last year I was passionate about, and I wanted to share that passion with others. And then I started looking around, and the beauty of social media and having things at our fingertips, I realized that professional organizing is something that a lot of people do as a full-time profession. And so started following many of those on Instagram, just following their journeys and how they were improving people's lives through the gift of organization. And then this year, during the initial lockdown of the pandemic, like many of us, I had a little bit more time on my hands than I normally would. And so really started to get serious about it. Getting serious about thinking about it, and then also with some encouragement from my husband who said, why don't you just do it? And so that initial kind of summertime when we were still kind of locked down, started doing a few jobs for friends. Thank you to every one of those first clients who let me come into their homes and practice. And then officially on September 1st of last year, Containing Spaces was launched to the world. And Again, it's my side business, but I'm super passionate about it and find creative ways to fit it into my schedule. And so just excited to now have the opportunity to share that passion with other people, to help people in their homes and get control of their lives. And so you got a little background and context of Janet and Containing Spaces and how this all happened. So now I'm going to turn to really what tonight's topic that we're going to dive into. As Melissa said, we titled it New Year, New Organized Spaces, Basics of Home Organization, Common Problems, Organization, and how organization brings mental clarity. So it is 2021. We finally made it, and it's a common time to have your New Year's goals. New Year, New You, that's a popular one. You know, we're going to start eating healthy. We're going to start exercising. There's a lot of goals, and my goal tonight is to say that organization can fit along with all of those goals that you have for the year, and it's going to help enable you be more successful in those other ones also. Since I am going to be talking a little bit at the end about mental health, I feel like I need to do a disclaimer. I am in no way a mental health professional. I have done some research on it though, and I only speak from the personal experiences that I have from myself and from the transformations that I've seen from my clients. So, as we dive in, I want you to think with me for a second. You come into your home at the end of a busy day. Maybe you've worked all day, you've taken the kids to basketball practice, somewhere in there you've gotten some dinner, and now you're home. You finally made it home. When you walk through that door, what do you feel? Relaxation? Calmness? Peace? Are you able to sink into your couch, snuggle up with your kiddos for an evening bedtime show? Or do you feel overwhelmed? Stressed? Anxious? Unmotivated when you see all the toys thrown all over your house or that your kitchen counters are covered in clutter? If you think about that for a second, those are two very different pictures, and each come with its own set of feelings. And now you've tuned in today, hopefully because you've decided that you've had enough of the stress and anxiety, and you're ready for relaxation and time for things more valuable. So my business motto is actually, let me help you contain your space so that you and your family can live outside the box. And so the thought behind that is if your home is contained and everything is orderly, then you are going to have that time for the snuggle time on the couch or the board game with your husband or whatever that looks like for you and your family. So again, it's a new year, so let's make organization a reality for you in 2021. We're going to start with the basics. I've kind of narrowed it down to 6 basic steps. There's some bullet points in between. So let's start with number 1, and obviously the most important. Start small, but just start. And so what I have learned in organizing so far is when I go and do a space at my house or someone else's house and I pull everything out of a closet and I spread it out everywhere, to me that's exciting. What I find from my clients is that is overwhelming. Too much, too fast, and then they can't progress forward. And so if you're going to do this on your own, 100% my advice is start small, but start somewhere. So maybe it's just a drawer. Let's take your silverware drawer. It's a small space. Is it just your silverware in there? Do you have containers for those silverware to keep them separated? Or are there chip clips in there and hot pads and things that don't belong in there? So start with a small space. Silverware drawer may seem really simple, but once you get that under your belt, it can lead to something larger. And so that's going to help you build your confidence and then give you the satisfaction that you need from that one contained space to move on to something else. So maybe it's your silverware drawer, and then it's your junk drawer, which I don't believe in junk drawers. I think they are essential drawers, but they need organization as well so that you know exactly what's in there. And then you move on to your dresser or to a bathroom cabinet and so on and so forth. So again, start small, but just start somewhere. So when you've decided on your space, the second step is to empty it. And so I mentioned take everything out, and once you have all the shelves or the drawers clear, make sure you clean it all. That one step of just wiping everything down and kicking off the dust and whatever else may be in there is going to give you that feeling of a fresh, clean start. So that in itself is a little therapeutic, just cleaning it all out. I'd like to use a medicine cabinet example for these next steps because it's a little less emotional attachment to your medicine cabinet. We'll talk about some of those keepsakes here in a little bit, but I want to keep it simple for this analogy. So you have your medicine cabinet, you've pulled everything out, and you've wiped down the shelves. The next step, which is number 3, is to purge, purge, purge. Now I don't force anyone to purge. I can organize whatever you have. But at the end of the day, if you have too many items, it's just going to be really hard to maintain and can become overwhelming. So purge. Again, we're using a medicine cabinet to make this one easy. But purging for medicine cabinets means expired medication. You will be shocked at how much you have in there. So as you're taking things out, make sure you dispose of expired medication in the proper ways. If you've got old Band-Aids that no longer stick, throw those away. And there may be some donatable items in there as well. Maybe it's a curling iron that you got for Christmas 5 years ago that you've never actually touched. Go ahead and donate that item. So then step 4 is to group the like items together. So you've got everything spread out, whether it's on the floor, the counter, your bed, whatever it may be. Start grouping like items together. So things like Band-Aids, gauze, and tape. To me, those are all one type of bandage category. Maybe another category is medications. So your pain relievers or your cold medicine. And you may end up having some subcategories, but start large with medications. Then maybe you have creams. So your first aid cream, your burn cream, any sort of thing like that. Maybe you have another category that's outdoor items. So sunscreen, bug repellent, aloe vera. So you're putting everything in your categories. And that allows you to do step 5, which is to create your system. The goal of organization is that everything has a home. Even if it's the Band-Aids, it needs a home. So I highly, highly recommend some sort of storage container. I've brought a lot here tonight. These are just examples. I probably won't talk about all of them, but you can see they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, price points as well. I know some people, they shy away of buying. They don't want to purchase things for their organization, which I do understand, but know that organization is an investment. And so anytime you make an investment, there's something initial that you have to do, but that's going to pay off in the long run. So highly recommend some sort of containers. If you ever have questions about containers, you can hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. I'm happy to answer any questions. I've done probably more research than I should on containing products. So definitely hit me up. So highly recommend some sort of storage container. Again, lots of options. And then what you're going to do is actually I actually bought these to do my medicine cabinet at home, so this is timely. These are a very simple bin. So all your Band-Aids and gauze go in this one, and then all of your medications go in this one, and so on and so forth. And you're going to arrange it in your medicine cabinet in the logical way you would use it. So mine, for example, is 3 shelves. The bottom I would put, again, I have 2 toddler boys, so I would put all of the first aid on the first shelf. So that's where all my Band-Aids are going to go. My antibiotic creams and all of that sort of thing is going to go on my first shelf so that it's easily accessible. On the next shelf, I'd probably put my medications. And again, those will probably be subcategoried. I also really like these turntables for a medicine cabinet because you can put your, cotton balls and your creams and your Band-Aids there. You can spin it. This actually comes out, so you can pull this out as well. Again, I'd probably do medications on the second, and then your highest most shelf, which is a little harder to reach, you're going to want to put the things that you don't access as often. So maybe that's your seasonal things, your sunscreen and bug spray and whatnot. So that's step 5, is to create your system. Everything now has a home. And then step 6 is going to just be to maintain it. And the key to maintaining are your labels. I literally wrote in my notes, labels are life. I don't care how you do them, what they look like. They're big or small, but that's going to make your maintenance possible. So you can see on this container, I have oats. When this container is empty, there's no question what goes back in the oats container. This one says cards. This is actually from my game closet, so we keep our cards in there. These are also really good in a home office. These are my headbands. So you can see the labels. This is just a small hand label. They come in, you can do them any way you want. You can write on them with a marker for all I care. The point is that it has a label so that you know what goes in there, or if you're going to look for something, you know exactly what container to look into. So quick review on the basics. Start small, but just start. Empty the space and clean it out. Purge, purge, purge. Group like items together. Create a system, and then maintain. So we've got the basics. Those are the basic 6 steps. Those are I used a medicine cabinet example today. Those are going to apply to any space that you do. Now I want to cover just a few common problem areas and simple solutions that you can take. Again, this is not necessarily the walk into your pantry, pull everything out, and start over. This is just going to be some few tangible things that hopefully you can take away tonight. One of the biggest common problem areas is actually your kitchen counters. And obviously that's a common space, so we're all in there a lot. And the visual clutter can be very overwhelming to folks. So think about, you come in, you grab the mail, and you drop it on the counter. The dishes are in the sink from the night before. Maybe you have decor on the counter. Then your kids' backpacks end up on the counter. All of the things end up on the counter, and they may or may not get moved later. This visual clutter, like I said, can be very overwhelming and stressful. So your goal is to have as clean the countertops as you possibly can. And the way to do that is to manage things as they come in. So if you need a catch-all basket, which I understand doesn't clean counters every single night is not always practical, I recommend a catch-all basket. Maybe something this size, or even just a smidge larger, that the mail can go in, that the permission slip that needs signed can go into, whatever it may be, and then commit to yourself at the end of the week that you're going to go through it and put everything back in its home. So that's one option. And then the other thing too is just to manage it as they come in. So for example, our mail, as soon as we walk in the door, you can pretty much tell what's junk. It goes immediately in the recycle bin. If it's a bill, then it gets taken out of the envelope and put where it needs to go with stuff that needs to be handled later. I also recommend putting unused appliances away. I know not everyone has a storage space for that, but for example, we don't use our toaster every day, so our toaster actually lives in our pantry. We pull it out when we need it. If you drink coffee every single day, yes, that coffee maker should be on the counter. If you only drink coffee on the weekends, then maybe it can get put away somewhere until you need it for those 2 days on the weekend. So those are a couple tangible things you can do to try to keep your kitchen counters clean. One thing too I recommend, which may not be super popular, but keeping your decor on your kitchen counters, I would keep that to a minimum. And if you have decor, think about it like something nice. So like if you have, there's some bamboo turntables that you may have your oil and vinegars on that you cook with. Like that would be a nice decor item. The next problem area I want to talk about is kids' rooms, probably because I have a lot of experience in this area. I actually think I could probably do a whole session just on kids' rooms. Again, I have two kind of potentially unpopular opinions. One, I think kids have too many toys. And so I am constantly purging because I just think they have too much. My second unpopular opinion is I also believe that kids' toys should stay in their rooms. Now, not meaning all the time. So my kids bring their toys out to the living room, to the kitchen, but they go back at the end of the day so that you're not waking up to a living room floor full of Legos. So that's my personal opinion. You can take that for what you will. But my biggest tip for kids' rooms is contain. And so I actually brought this bin tonight. This is a very inexpensive bin. I think these actually come 10 for $10 at Walmart. So they're very affordable, which is good because my kids are rough on them. But for example, I don't know how well you guys can see, but this is just a doctor kit that my kids love to play with. And they have a bunch of these bins in their closets. They're labeled on the end. This is doctor set. Now, granted, they can't read yet. You can do a picture label, which is good for the little ones. But what I do with these is it's not uncommon for like 6 boxes to be opened and spread out on their floor. They are not saints by any means. And so when I go in there, it's time to pick up for the night. I'll just open all the boxes, set them side by side, and I'll put one of the doctor kit items in the doctor kit. one Lego in the Lego, and so on and so forth. And then they start to know where things go. Some nights is better than others, but that's my suggestion. And then like I said, constantly purging toys. If your kids have outgrown that toy, it's no longer their educational level or whatever it may be, go ahead and donate that to someone else who can use it. And I get my kids involved in that process as well. And then my other key tip is to rotate your toys. So like I said, I have a lot of these boxes. I have some others as well. And I keep so many in their room. And then every 2-4 weeks, whenever they kind of lose interest in those, I'll go to the attic where I store the extra ones and swap out a couple bins. And then it's like Christmas. They have toys that they forgot they had. And then that'll keep their interest for so long, and you can keep rotating it like that. That just keeps you from having too many toys all out all at the same time, where they end up all over the house and all over their floors. And then lastly, kids are really great at organizing. I think their brains kind of think compartmentally like that. At least that's been my experience. And so if you give them a system like this and get them involved in the process, then they enjoy it a little bit more. My son Jet is constantly telling me, Mommy, I'm organizing. He thinks it's a fun thing to do. Okay, the next problem area is pantries. Similar to the medicine cabinet, you will be shocked at how much expired food that you have in your pantry. It just happens. It happens to everyone. So my suggestion there is definitely to go through your food items, maybe quarterly, and make sure that anything's expired, that you get rid of that. The other big piece of advice for the pantry is, again, that visual clutter. And so one thing in my pantry, I don't have any like original boxes. So say you bought like a box of individual bags of Cheez-Its. Well, that giant ugly red box, I don't keep that in my pantry. I have bins. These are actually the bins I use in my pantry. And I have like 3 sizes. This is actually the smaller one. So the larger one, I would take all the Cheez-Its out and put them in the basket with its proper label on it. And you know exactly what's in there. You know when you need to refill or add it to your shopping list. And then again, you're removing that visual clutter. There's actually a larger version of this bin that's really great for pantries as well. And you just have this nice white look instead of the less pretty boxes everywhere. I also do that with some of my flour and sugar. You can see the oats. I have almonds, cereal. I use these for my cereal containers as well. Home offices is the next problem area. And what I find in home offices is that at the end of the day, there's just too much paper. Paper everywhere. And a lot of it is unnecessary. So I'm not an expert quite yet on like taxes and how many years you need to keep that and all of the legal things that you need to keep. I understand there's going to be some of that, but there's a lot of paper that we're keeping that we don't need to. So definitely look online if you need research in this area on what you actually need to keep and file those things properly. This is actually, I mentioned I use this in my game closet, but we also have these like my kids' coloring books or extra paper or whatever, so these would be good in a home office also. So like if you had all, medical records that you need to keep. Maybe this is all, your medical records. But the biggest piece there is to sign up for digital statements as much as possible. So, your bank statement, your credit cards, your bills, whatever is available for digital statements, highly recommend doing that. And then the paper clutter never even comes into your house. And then the last thing I want to cover with problem areas are your keepsakes. This part's really hard for people, and I understand. And the biggest thing with keepsakes is we have too many of them, and they're often spread all over our house, and then we never really look at them. They're just taking up space, which you have to keep in mind is your valuable real estate that could be used for something else. So if you have a spare room at your house, and it's floor to ceiling of boxes of keepsakes and heirlooms that you have trouble getting rid of, my biggest encouragement to you would be to think, what could I use this space for if it wasn't full of heirloom items? Maybe you're picking up a new hobby, or you want a craft room or an art room or a music room or a room for your grandkids to sleep in when they come over. Whatever the thing may be, I encourage you to think about that. And only keep items that you have room for. So this really is, again, I know it's a very hard process for people, and if you struggle in this area, I'd be happy to help you and be there with you while you walk through that process. But you need to go through and touch things one by one and decide really what matters and really what brings you joy, and what you want to keep. I also like to kind of box myself in, if you will, and pick a tub size. Now these are small, right? But if you wanted to pick a larger tub or two, you want one tub of your child's, kid 1, and then one tub for kid 2. Make yourself stay within that space. If it starts overflowing, then we need to get rid of some. So on the keepsake note, my 4-year-old Jet is in preschool, and they make a lot of amazing artwork. And I love every bit of it, but I cannot keep it all. There's just too much. And so what I do when he brings his papers home at the end of the week, I may see a couple that stand out as things I want to keep. I file them in a bin, and then what I did was the end of the first semester, I went through it again. Okay, maybe I don't need this one. This one's cuter. You kind of do some evaluating there. And one thing I also did this year was I didn't need 15 homemade Christmas ornaments. So I took a couple to my mom, I took a couple to my mother-in-law, and they thought it was amazing, right? Because now they have this piece of their grandson on their tree, and they enjoyed that very much. So that was a way for me to pass that on to someone else, and not have to store 15 homemade Christmas ornaments. I know that's a little bit different than your maybe your mother or grandmother's items who passed away, so I just encourage you to really think about what you could be using that space for, if you didn't have all of these items. So that kind of wraps up my problem areas, and I'm going to shift just briefly here to organization and mental clarity. Again, this is where I did some research, not a mental health professional. But I do think it's important to kind of reflect on some of these things that our organization can bring into your life. Now I didn't bring photos today. You can look on my social media and see the before and afters for inspiration and stuff like that. But what I really want to share with you today is the lifestyle that you can have if you are living an organized life. And what I've, again, come to realize, because this has always kind of come naturally to me, is that some people don't actually realize what it's like to live in a clutter-free home, and that's okay. It's just not something that you've experienced yet in your life, but it is possible, and it can lead to some of these outcomes. So this particular research is from some psychology bulletins, but it's from an article in Shape magazine, and actually says organization reduces stress and depression. And I want to read this to you because I don't want to mess up the research, but it says women who described their homes as cluttered or full of unfinished products were more depressed, fatigued, and had higher levels of the stress hormone cortisol than women who felt their homes were restful and restorative. So again, direct correlation between clutter and depression and fatigue. So obviously the alternative of that is to clear up the clutter and live a better stress-free life. The second thing the organization does is it actually helps you eat better, which I found this one interesting. So people who worked in a neat space for 10 minutes were twice as likely to choose an apple over a chocolate bar than those who worked in a messy office for the same amount of time. Clutter is stressful for the brain, so you're more likely to resort to coping mechanisms such as choosing comfort food or overeating than if you spend time in neater surroundings. So literally, the physical clutter is cluttering your brain, and it leads to a variety of bad choices. One of those can be your food choices. And so obviously with it being 2021 and a new year, maybe you do have a health and lifestyle goal. Organization is going to directly impact that and help you make better decisions. The third thing organization does is help you improve your relationships. This is for couples, clutter can create tension and conflict. And the time you spend looking for missing items can also take away from the time you could be spending together. A messy house may also prevent you from inviting people over. Disorganization can lead to shame and embarrassment and actually create a physical and emotional boundary around you that prevents you from letting people in. I found this one really interesting because I truly believe that we are not meant to do this life alone. And I think that disorganization or hoarding or whatever it may be can definitely pull you away from people. And even as simple as, this says, the time you spent looking for something you could have been spending with others, but it's so true, right? I can spend 30 minutes looking for a pair of scissors, or if you have an organized space, I know exactly where I can get that for you in 30 seconds, and we can move on with our evening and remove any tension or mishaps that might happen. And then again, to the embarrassment. I understand, and I have a zero judgment policy when it comes to my business because it's just not easy for everyone. And it's not something to be ashamed of, but something that can be overcome with a little bit of work. The fourth thing is that organization boosts your productivity. Clutter is distracting, and research confirms that it can actually affect your ability to focus. Looking at too many things at once overloads your visual cortex and interferes with your brain's ability to process information. So this one really hits home for me from my day job at Phillips 66 in my desk space. If I've gone to several meetings and now I have some papers and I have a snack and I have a trinket that I've picked up and my desk is suddenly cluttered, I literally can't focus on the work that's in front of me. So taking a couple minutes to remove those boundaries can actually make you more productive. That's going to follow you to any space in your home as well. And then the last thing is that organization helps you sleep better. I thought this one was interesting as well. Less mess equals less stress, which naturally results in better sleep. But keeping your bedroom neat may benefit your slumber in other ways. People who make their beds every morning are 19% more likely to report regularly getting a good night's rest. So just something as simple as starting with making your bed every day can have lasting impact throughout the day because you're not seeing the mess of it, and it can also help you sleep better at night. So just to recap the 5 things: organization can reduce stress and depression, helps you eat better, improve your relationships, boost productivity, and helps you sleep better. So there are too many things pulling on us in this life, so many things coming at us that are completely out of our control, from our kids' schedules and what they're involved in, work schedules, relationships, what's going on around us in our political environment, all of these things that are so out of our control. But for me, organization is the one thing you can control. So with a little work, you can get it and maintain it and control your clutter. Hopefully you'll be able to see the importance of organization in your life. And again, back to my motto, you can tame your space so that you and your family can live outside the box. And many people can do it on their own, and I encourage you to do that if you feel led to. But if it's too overwhelming, that's okay. That's why I'm here. That's why I've started this business. This is not a sales pitch, but I do want you to know that I'm happy to come do a consultation at any time if you need containing spaces to come and help you. Again, I have a zero judgment policy, so I know that your homes are a very personal space, and I take that very seriously. So again, thank you all for tonight and tuning in. I'm going to turn it back over.
Well, thank you, Janet, for giving us all those useful tips to consider while we're organizing our living spaces this year. We just want to give a big thank you to everybody that joined in for this, and just have a great night, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.